I'm Anna Lenarcik, and welcome to today's episode of Melody of the Future, a series of conversations about how technology is changing the way we create, share, and experience sound and music. Today, my guest is Agnieszka Cichocka, who is a creative tech strategist and a startup advisor. She is the co-founder of Dream-n-Visio, a company that helps integrate art and culture into business strategy, and head of acceleration at ZAX Lab. With a background in art history and years of experience leading accelerators, including a program with Google for Startups, Żabka, and Fuel Arts, she brings deep expertise in creative tech. This episode explores the evolving landscape of creative technology, where art, sound, and innovation collide. We discuss immersive experiences, sustainable design, the role of AI in music and curation, and the urgent need for more inclusive, interdisciplinary, and ethical tech ecosystems. Agnieszka, what areas do you find most exciting right now across art, design, performance, or media?
Yeah, so I think I would like to start with the fact that I'm a great fan of interdisciplinarity. And I think we can see in the recent years that we don't have those silos as we used to have, like visual arts, performing arts, film, like in design. So we're mostly working, in this cross-sectorial areas. So I think that we will be doing that more in the future. And also, I do think that sometimes those different projects or grant application don't really sometimes follow the reality, because I can see that in Poland, sometimes if you want to apply for a grant, you still need to show it very specifically, which area do you belong to, whether it's film or performing arts or architecture. And, like I'm a great fan of changing that, and that you can think in a more cross-sectorial way and interdisciplinary way. Like it's like we talked a little bit before the podcast, and you were mentioning immersive experiences and sound. So I think, like all those things cross together. So also we were together with CRPK, the center, the Polish Center for for development of creative industries, and an accelerator from New York, Fuel Arts. We were doing a report on Polish creative tech. And also in all the reports that Fuel Arts is doing, we're showing more. Of course, we still do show those silos like art plus tech, performing arts plus tech, but also we showed the value chain. And, like we named different aspects in this value chain, like R&D, trade, and analytics. And I think we should maybe more think of the value chain, and where the startups, bring the value, or which part of the chain they, they reply to. Because I think it's like difficult when you have those siluses. And what I find the most exciting, well, like I'm a huge fan of many different aspects. But recently, I've been reading a lot about nanotechnology and engineering, and I really like truly, for example, in architecture, which I love. I'm super interested in how those materials like mushrooms, can be mixed with other materials, for example, and can be, like concrete can be replaced by that, so that you kind of design the living creatures, like the houses will be living creatures. And I know that it still sounds a little bit futuristic, I would say, but like I think that all those technologies are getting cheaper and cheaper. And like with such a great growth of AI and engineering and bioinformatics, or those different technologies, they're becoming cheaper. So I think, it's not such a far future. So this is really exciting for me. And as I mentioned before, that I like those cross sectorial projects. So there is this project that I really loved. It is a project, it's not a startup. It's called Repair. And it brings together AI, robotics, and like different institutions, research institutions. They built a robot that helps you put together different artifacts like ceramics, for example, because it occurs that, you know, when you have the archaeological, you know, like you have some excavations, and then, you know, if I don't know, like glass is broken into, let's say, 1,000 pieces, it is absolutely impossible for a human being to put it together. But, you know, with like the combination of AI and robotics can do that. So it's very difficult because, you know, like those pieces are very small. Very often it needs to be very precise. But also with the growth of robotics, you know, it starts to be possible right now that those robots can grab it, can put it together, you know, like it's scanning the glass so that it knows which pieces, you know, to take and, you know, like to put there, which, you know, like without this technology wouldn't be possible. And then in that case, if it's not possible, part of our history, you know, it's forgotten because we cannot have access to that. And yeah, I know I am having a lot of examples here, you know, I'll have probably more examples later on. But I also, you know, like those, like in terms of performing arts, for example, you know, I like those projects that are like connecting art or like culture, let's say, in a broader sense, but have the social angle. And there is this project which is called Lanced. And this is a project which supports auditions in performing arts. But it's like a platform where like theaters can look for the artists for their performances, but also the artists. And, you know, it doesn't sound maybe very, you know, it's not a cutting edge technology. But what I really love about it is that it supports diversity in the sector. And I have this personal story that last weekend I was in London, and together with my 17-year-old sister, we went to the theater for a musical. It was Hamilton. And, you know, like it was amazing for me, even though I travel a lot and, you know, I go to a lot of different international theaters. But it was so great that on one stage you could see people of different sexes, different, you know, backgrounds, and people of different origins, different, you know, race. And it is something that, for example, in Poland, you don't see that often, right? That's and I was thinking, you know, about those young people, because I'm a fan of, you know, doing projects where you can also show like which are the role models, or that you can, you know, create those role models for other people. And I think it's so great for those people of different origins that they can see, you know, people similar to themselves on stage, you know, and that you can see this real mixture of culture. So that's why I love also this project. And so I'm a fan, you know, of like kind of two sides. On one hand, the projects which involve technology, but they're like maybe more artistic or social. And of course, on the other hand, startups that are more, you know, like on the business side, and that use this technology for making our lives easier. Yeah, I could go long around that. I think I hope there will be still more time, you know, to talk about some like like connection or convergence of technologies. But I think you also, you know, immersive technologies and music, that this is something that's really extremely interesting, like the spatial audio, AR, VR, and all the environments that create some responsive installations. So this is, I think also this is something that people love, you know. I think it's like it's great when you can engage them.
So you mean immersive experience that people love? Because I think it's still not very popular trend. It maybe just to be more popular during pandemic, like this, all of these digital spaces that you could go in and attend some meetings, concerts, and events were more popular because people couldn't go out. But now I think there is this trend into making like spaces immersive, but not in digital world, but for example, some immersive museums or events with using this technology that could change the place with immersive sound and visuals and some experiences inside. So can you precise what?
Yeah. So I
Mhm.
meant those spaces that you have immersive exhibitions or spaces, but in the real world, not the digital world.
Mhm.
I'm not such a fan of, to be honest, of those spaces in a digital world, but it's of a very, like, it's not because it's, I don't find it interesting. It's because it's difficult for me, although I know that people, younger people, probably they're just used to it. So for me it's just like very difficult physically to be in such a space, for a long time. So too much is going on, and I find it challenging, but also I think there is this, like, space for innovation, so that when you build those spaces or design those spaces, that you also think of people who have different challenges, like, so people who have, I don't know, epilepsy, people who have ADHD, so that they can, like, not concentrate that much on that, or it's just, or for people who, for whom, like, all those different aspects of sound and visuals is a little bit too much, and they need to, be in a maybe quieter space. So I think this is, there is a great space for innovation here, to design it that way. But I meant those spaces, that's yeah, like museums, and I think people do love it, because also very often those experiences are, participatory. So I think people just like to like to be part of the work. But also, like, some of them, because, I don't want to generalize that I love them. I love those that are good quality, because I think there is this, like a short line, or, like, thin line, between, something that is interesting and has a great artistic value, and something which is just kitschy, because I've also been to some exhibitions which were just bad exhibitions, and then, like, this immersive, like, it doesn't help, right? It's just more like a fun, it's like a, like a playground, as if you went to, with friends to have fun somewhere in the city, instead of, high value artistic experience. But I was amazed, and I am amazed generally with what the Marshmallow Laser Feast are doing. There is this project in Poland, BMW Art Club, and I think 2 or 3 years ago they were doing a VR and sound experience in the theater in Warsaw. And first, they took you to this very silent room where you listened to a poem read by Kate Blanchett. And then, like, you went in, and it was a VR experience where you basically, like, you went inside the body, so you could, like, you could see all the veins and everything that you have. But it was so, it was done in such a poetic way, and then the sound, because then she was also reading different things. So, like, this connection of sound and visuals was, it was so amazing that, I still remember that, and it was absolutely great, but it was great visually, and the sound was amazing. So I think this intersection of art and sound is very important, but it needs to be done right.
Totally agree.
Yeah. But also, I was in Ars Electronica last year, and it's a festival that's in Linz in Austria. It's an art and tech festival which is very famous in Europe, and they also had this exhibition where people basically were part of the artworks, and it was very participatory. But what was interesting, that it was just, run by someone, because I think, sometimes when you have those participatory experiences, people don't participate, right? So they just, stand, they look, they don't know if they should do it or not. So there was a person, who was some kind of a, she was running the show, and telling, like, what you have to do. Sometimes we had to do some things, like in pairs, so she was pairing us. And it was also great. And it was like, already after an hour, you could sense like this kind of had a feeling of a community, because, people who were complete strangers, they started collaborating together, and she was like, encouraging us. So you also had to leave your comfort zone a bit. So that was great. So, like, I think all those things are great, but they need to be done in a proper way. It needs to have a high artistic value and musical or sound value. And yeah, I think that's the key to everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can relate to this because I'm a fan of immersive experiences and virtual reality technology, especially because I find a huge potential in not only in art sector, but for example in healthcare sector and education. Because like for example, it depends how this experience is designed, and it can have totally different effects because it can make you like you are annoyed or distract, but also if it's designed well, it literally increase your focus and attention and provide you through some, for example, amazing story through all of these the visual effects, sound effects. You can just fully immerse into this experience, and um, like some of this experience are really outstanding, I would say. But it has to be done in the right way, like in this very, very detailed way, I would say. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think there are like two also very interesting projects going on right now, and I just wrote down the names so that I could mention that. So they are done in Europe right now, and they are all connected with the starts prizes. So it's a prize that is for the art and tech projects. And one is Sensing Quantum. So it was created by the Last VAS Foundation. They are based in Berlin.
I've heard about
Um,
them.
Yes, and it's actually a research project. It's a long-term research project, and it explores this interesting world of quantum science, and how the technology and philosophy and contemporary art merge together there. But I think it's very interesting because, of course, quantum computing is something that can be a game changer for sure. Like in many different aspects in music as well. And the part of this project is the Sound Lab. And it's dedicated to deep listening and sonic exploration. So I think this is also very, very interesting because it's exploring this sound part of quantum, I would say. And the other one is a project actually by this Marshmallow Laser Feast, and it got the honorary mention in the Starts Prize, and it's also connected with the sound, but with whales. So they it occurs, and I didn't know that before. So I found out when I was reading about this project that in water the sound travels 5 times faster. And so they placed like those cameras in the water. And like the whole project is also a social project because it's about the communication between animals, like the sound communication, but also how this communication is kind of disturbed by the noise pollution. And the noise pollution is usually like the pollution that is done by humans. It also like shows how we disturb it and how we disturb this evolutionary process. And it's all done um, using machine learning and the underwater videos. And then like it shows real time what is happening there, when like what happens when we really like pollute this this ecosystem, I would say, with our noises that are part of our life. So I found it very interesting, and their works are very, very beautiful. And yeah, and also like I want to stress that the sound is very, very important there. I know we're like talking about music, although
Mhm.
yeah, but I would like those two to connect.
So this is very fascinating, and also, like, I would like to ask you if you had a chance to explore this term, like sound pollution, because, for example, I did a research on
Mhm.
some point about light pollution, living in very big agglomerations like big cities, and um, like this area that we make lots of interactions into the nature.
Yeah, well,
And
the
Mhm.
environment, like I think it's also like the light pollution is very interesting. I mean, you can't see the
Mhm.
stars when you live in a big city, right? Like you really
Yeah.
need to go somewhere far away. And I think there are like there was also this artistic project in Netherlands. I don't remember the name right now, but I can send the link as well. I can find it.
Mhm.
And it was about switching lights in all the cities so that people, for one time in a year can see the stars in the city so that they don't need to go far away. And it's like it sounds so simple, right? But I think only, I think it's all about the that you suddenly start to realize that it sounds so simple, but then you didn't even think about it, like when you read about this project or explore it yourself or just feel it yourself or are a part of it, then you just like it starts to like ring a bell in your head that, oh, that's a problem, so I think this is also the same, that I didn't do anything. I was just reading some time ago about those prizes because this is an interesting topic for me. So I was kind of curious, who won, and I started reading about those projects. And they are usually, as I mentioned, that they are a little bit social sometimes, or exploring different technologies, or connecting different technologies. And I found this project, and then I started thinking about it because this is not something that you do, like on a regular basis, right? That you just wake up and are thinking, how the noise pollution is disturbing the whales.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think it's great that through such projects you just at least have this thought in your head, maybe not always you can do something, but then like the more people realize that, and the more people like think about it, I think the better it is, right? It's the same, with all the technologies.
Yeah, indeed. Because, like, I was inspired by some podcast, to be honest. I just found this podcast, and they were discussing about this light pollution. And then I started to dive deeper into this topic, and I just realized that how impactful it is, and for animals, for example, that they have to just run away from areas around big cities, and it's like a very big areas. It's not only the city, but some kilometers around the city even. And of course, sound pollution is another topic. It's not only disturbing for us, but as you mentioned, for animals as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, we even, because I think generally speaking, like living in a big city, we somehow got adjusted to to the noise outside, and somehow like we can switch off the
Yeah.
sense, right? That's on some point it's even not so disturbing for us. It's like a normal thing.
Yeah, or also how like what to do so that the music is also, like good quality. And we're discussing
Mm,
so much about AI, of course. Well, I don't want to,
mm,
like dig too much into that topic probably, but it's so scary that we're optimizing everything, and we're like, well, everything has good and bad sides, I think. So it's great that, I'm a great fan of all the tools that help artists collaborate, and all the tools that challenge the traditional roles in the music industry, I think, or that like are more participatory or data oriented or decentralized. So like I think it's great that we're doing this, but also on the other hand, when I'm thinking how many new like songs I would say are created by AI, and that they all sound the same really, and there is this flood of songs over the streaming platforms, and then I'm just thinking that like, so this scares me as well, that if we don't really take care of that and don't really think about our local cultures, traditions, I know, like real artists, that soon, like all the music that we hear, I hope it will never happen. So because I wouldn't like all the music that I hear be just like AI generated sound that is all like the same really. So
Hmm.
I think this is something that we should absolutely avoid, of course.
Yeah, because like this AI generated music is present more and more in the digital space, and it also generates this noise, I would say. And yeah, I'm more optimistic in when I think about AI impact on music. Of course, it will impact for sure the stock music market, I would say, but I truly believe in the creativity, and that in the human impact in music creation is very important. And of course, you can listen to the music as music itself, but usually it's connected to someone who is behind this, right? To the bigger context. And I think I, I'm not scared too much. Of
Mhm.
course, there will
Yeah,
be changes for sure,
yeah.
but the creative people, I think they will stand out from this AI generated noise.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
for sure.
yeah.
I think, also on the other hand, this is what I mentioned before, right? That everything has those good and bad sides, like we just need to like think
Mhm,
about it and see the and just
mhm,
see both sides. It's the same with, I mean, like when you have all those AI generative tools for art as well, it doesn't make anyone an artist. It's great that some artists are using those tools, and that they help them in creating
indeed.
like
Mhm,
their works. And I think also, like those tools can be very helpful if you're a curator, for example. It's sometimes that like art history, I'm an art historian of education, although I've never worked as an art historian, but I learned a lot. And it's like a huge knowledge, so you need to like to find some connections between the paintings, or as a curator, sometimes it's just like it's easier that with AI that it can help you curate an exhibition, because it can analyze the data in seconds, and it just can support the whole process, because it can see the links that you basically can't see, that. So I think in that way, it's great, and sometimes it shows, or you can find some very interesting works that you wouldn't come across without that. But also on the other hand, we just need to always bear in mind that like we kind of designed this digital world, which is like a copy of our real world. So it is biased. It also like we don't want a situation in which you're a curator and you're using an AI, and it just gives you, I don't know, all the paintings of white men, for example, because this is what's most of art history
mhm,
like shows, right? So this is what I mean, that we always need to like see those two sides and treat it as an opportunity, but also to bear in mind that it's learned on some data which is biased, and we don't want this digital world or our future to look the same. Let's make it better. It's like, let's include those that
mhm.
haven't been included in our art history. Let's not make this mistake once again. So So this would
Oh
be
yeah.
my.
Oh, that's a like I can truly relate to the statement.
Yeah.
So I also think that this is the very important thing, and I hope, yeah, that I mean when I use AI generative tools, I mean, it's obvious that you have the very specific, specifically generated content that is like the most common, the most it's not out, like out of the box, right? It's like mostly the the most accurate answer, and I really like when it analyzes that data and gives you some, you know,
Yeah, it
the
can give you some hints, right? That
yeah.
you wouldn't see it yourself because it's just like too much. You can't analyze that data. So yes, I
Mhm.
think it's interesting. And like I love it like until because like when it broadens your knowledge and your capabilities, it's great. But yeah, we just need to be careful so that that it doesn't copy those things that we don't really want to copy because we've already been there, so let's
Mhm.
let's not do the same, right? And yeah.
Then, on the other hand, we can use this AI tool as some partner to create. It's not like giving the prompt on some, you know, the idea and waiting for this, like waiting for this tool to create something for you, but making this iteration in with this tool, because I think it's very interesting, this creative process. I spoke to some artists that use these tools in this way, and that provides like that they claim that it even increases their creativity possibilities. So it depends how we use it.
Yeah, totally
I think
agree. I was reading this research of MIT around generative tools, and it was written. Of course, I can't now cite it properly, probably, but I can also find this research that people that were create like very much creative before using the tools and had like good skills, like those cognitive skills before,
mm,
that AI, like it grows their creativity. But those that didn't have those cognitive skills on a proper level before, that it really like lowers your skills because you stop really thinking. It's very difficult then to remember the information that you're reading because you just like when you don't do the search yourself, and when it takes just 2 minutes and you just read it, you can't really understand or like memorize the information, so it's very difficult, and then it lowers. But I do believe that if you're a creative person, like using those tools can help you a lot, and yeah, and can broaden your like horizons and your spectrum of work, I would say.
yeah, definitely. So I'm very curious what is next, how we are gonna develop like this in which direction, because I think it's now it's a very interesting time, and literally the possibilities are even broader, and this is the time for creative people, like I would say.
Yeah,
Mm,
definitely. Well, I'm just like yeah, so it's very hard to say, of course, how we're going to develop, but I think I was wondering a lot if AI is there to stay, but in my opinion, yes, and we will use it. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper, and I think we will use it more and more often, and for more and more things. But yeah, but my dream is to because but I think it will happen, so there are a lot of apps that are like really a lot, because with AI now it's much easier to create it than before, so I don't think that we need the seventh app for something, but I think it's maybe, because it was like a wave, right? That suddenly, it was so easy to, like you had access to huge data sets, and it was so easy, to create an app with very, like low funds and very little skills even, I would say. So people were just like, producing those apps, but I think that it will stop at some point, and that we will use this technology for something that really matters, so that really, like, I do want to believe in that there are a lot of different, challenges that we have in the world, and that we will use it, um for like to solve those challenges, from like very, like we're in the creative tech sector, so there are of course a lot of challenges, but we also have a lot of social challenges around the world, from, I don't know, building cheap houses for people, or supporting those, it's like a whole range of things. So I do hope that we will use it more and more often for those, like really important challenges, not just, like the seventh app for, I don't know, like ordering food, or a marketplace or something, or like translating in minutes, you know what I mean, right? It's all very important, but it does exist, and there's a lot of that. So yeah, so I hope that we will have this, change after this wave, and after this, like, great excitement of AI. I hope that we will just use it, connect it also to other technologies like engineering and robotics, because I think this is also, we're not talking about hardware a lot, but I think also there will be probably more of this hardware software connections, and yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I also, like, it's impossible even to stay up to date with all of these advancements that are ongoing now. So yeah, but literally when I open the internet, the social media, and I see this content of, technological news and groundbreaking technologies, and I'm so amazed what is already possible. Like
Yeah.
really, like it's just like, yeah, the possibilities are countless
Yes.
indeed. So
Yes,
so
but I also think, that we always need to remember that there is a lot of marketing behind all those technologies, and that, like, we really need to, like, keep our minds, on the fact that, sometimes it is just marketing, like, so, it's very, yeah, the world is changing in terms of, like all the fake news, of course, and deep fakes, etc., which is a huge problem. Like, it's a
oh
great,
yeah.
it's again, it's a great opportunity, like, the fact that you don't need to meet the lecturer who will read, like, who will be a US or UK native speaker and will read your text for the film properly, and you can just use a tool and, like, record it in 5 minutes sitting in your home. It's great, but then on the other hand, it's really very difficult to tell the reality from, something that's fake. And I could see that recently there were those there started to emerge those tools that are actually, like, you can upload a video there, and you can, or audio or something, and you can, like, dare to tell you if that's a deep fake or not, if it's, if so that's, interesting. I don't know how, because it's the same, with those tools that will tell you that it was written by Chat GPT, or any other tool. So it doesn't always work. I think, it doesn't have. So maybe with those tools it's the same. I don't know. It's very difficult to say, but the fact that those tools are being created, and that you're looking on at a photo, and you don't know if it's, if it's reality or not, and this technology is, like, it's advancing, as you're saying, so fast that, like 6 months ago you could really, like, you could spot some things that would tell you it's not true. Right now you can't even, like, you can't really spot that, and it's gonna get better and better probably. So so again, it's like, it's great, but, let's remember about the other side, where like, we probably live in this bubble and of knowing something about technology, but not everyone does. So yeah, so I always thinking about it, hope that like we're not gonna live in those separate worlds where like your news feed or feed on social media tells you just the news that you really want to hear, because I think it's because right now it does, so sometimes it's very difficult to even see the perspective of the other side, even talking about like all the political things or elections. You can see that the world is divided in half, like really seriously in half. There are two like parties that are on the like two different edges, and I it's like to build this dialogue, to understand the other side, also to accept that the other person is thinking differently. I think this should be supported by the technology as well, because right now it's very difficult for us to to understand that other people can think in a different way. So yes, I think, and it's also like in creative tech, right? So that we need to sometimes accept that people want to like create music in a different way, create art in a different way. It's we can't tell them no, like don't do that, because so there needs to be this dialogue all the time, I think.
Yeah. Literally, even when I think about creating some innovation and some solution for some problem, it has to be the answer for real needs. The very big difficulty how to use this technology to meet these different needs, but also in some common sense. This kind of solutions that can support the big amount of people, even they have slightly different opinions, slightly different needs. I also think that this is a very big challenge in terms of how digital world impacts us in using these algorithms that put us in some bubbles. I wouldn't even say that we are divided in two, but we are divided in many different ways.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Uh, but talking about this technological advancements and thinking about artists and musicians especially, I have a question for you, as from your perspective as mentor
Mhm.
of cross-disciplinary people, founders. So, do musicians need to become hybrid technologists today?
Yeah, well, it's a hard question. It's like I well, I don't want to say that they have to, but as I mentioned before, this interdisciplinarity, I think those jobs are changing, of course, and they will be changing, and I think it's not that I still think it will always be possible, to be, a traditional musician, just playing traditional instruments, not using, technology. Is the same as, with other jobs or other things, etc. But I think it will be changing, and I think it's also interesting for people to use those technologies. So I think, that people will, it's not even if they have to, I think they will become a little bit like hybrid, and that composers or musicians will also, I don't know, become algorithm writers, or yeah, so I think it will happen. It's not that if it has to. I don't think it has to, but I think it will, in a way, for some people, especially maybe for the younger generations who like just grew up with technologies and is just doing things in a different way. It's like for them it's something that's obvious that they are using it. So I would be far from saying that they have to. I would be far from saying that there won't be such a job or something, I'm really far away from that. I think it will always exist. I think it's just like a matter of trying new things and wanting to use innovative tools and just also making your life easier sometimes. So I
Mm.
think this will change, and it's already changing. So
Yeah, I think they have to adjust to rules that are made by technology recently, right? Because the roles in the industry also are changing. And now it's very important to track the metadata
yeah,
and to be visible in digital space. Even I would even say that even much more than in the real world, you have to just be present there and somehow find a way to catch the attention. Um,
I also think that this is what we talked about this interdisciplinarity.
mm,
So I think you're also like it's a different work that you're doing when you're composing your own music and playing at concerts, but it's a bit different work that you're doing when you compose music for a game or for an immersive installation, or for, I don't know, like a space where you want to have this like spatial audio experience. So I think like there are there isn't maybe, or there won't be maybe, this one name musician. I think there will be different kinds of musicians, like
mhm.
creating or like playing, in different spaces, like in digital or in real world, or like in I don't know, Roblox, or so that it will include somehow all
Mhm.
those different roles, that one person won't be musician. It will be like a musician for a very certain aspect, thing, or sector, etc. So I see it maybe in this way.
Yeah, I think so. I think the paradigm is changing even, right? And this is fascinating how and because we have more and more possibilities as well. I think this is it increases creativity, not only into the way to stick to only one way of creative expression, but literally for
Yeah,
encourages even to experiment with other way of making art. And defining yourself as a musician is like not enough already, right? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
mhm. So because you mentioned that you cooperate with institutions, and from your experience with TPK,
Hmm.
uh, Fuel Arts report, right?
Hmm.
So how can researchers and institutions help move these innovations, not only in music tech but in art tech, beyond academic papers into real world impact?
Yeah. Well, so that's a very complex and not easy question, but a good one, definitely. So like, because on universities you have those centers of like the transfer of for technology centers. So sometimes they do some spin-offs, and they create the startups from the research that they run before. But also, like, let's be honest, not all the researchers will be businessmen, or like the CEOs of startups. I think if you want to be a proper like being a researcher and a CEO of a startup, there are two different jobs. So some people, they just don't have skills. Some people, they just don't want to do it because they just want to do research for their whole life. And then because there are, of course, a lot of people who are CEOs of startups, but they are researchers. But it's like you need to give up something. So I think that the best model is just to maybe create a space in creative tech where researchers can like bring their research, and then find also people who can like lead it later, like who can make a business idea out of that, or so that they can collaborate together, but everyone can do their job, right? So I think this
Mm.
is something that we might miss. I don't want to say that we miss it in general, because as I mentioned, there are a lot of centers for, like this technology transfer in all the technical universities in Poland, etc. I like in creative tech, we don't really have it that much. I think I think such a space where you would meet artists and musicians and scientists. I was mentioning Ars Electronica because I think they also have the lab. They have the museum, they have the lab, they do a lot of different activities. But I think this is like an amazing, because they really do the research on, I don't know, textiles, material, nanotechnology, engineering, and all connected to creative tech. And I think this is a great model to do it, so that you combine those, you bring the people
Mhm.
together. And a researcher doesn't need to become a CEO, but he has people who like on board, who can do it and who can run it, and he can do his job. So I think this is that. And I do hope that in Poland we will have such a place. And I do hope that we will have maybe some investment funds, investing in creative tech only, let's
Mm.
say. So it's like a dedicated fund for creative tech, which we also don't have in Poland. And also always funding is, like an issue for those startups, because that's my personal opinion, that I think that a lot of investors just don't, they mix culture with creative tech, so they don't see
Mhm.
that creative tech is like fintech or health tech, and that there is a investment potential there. um, Also, sometimes they do invest in creative tech, but they don't name it that way, because those startups don't name themselves that way. So it's kind of a new term, I would say. So there are a lot of the different issues around it, but for sure it would help the whole like community of creative tech people, that there was an investment fund, or there would be such a lab where you would bring people together, or where you could also test those technologies. So and then we also are able to test some of those technologies, or help them test them and verify their thesis, and also like probably could be one of the clients, etc. So I think this is something like, those are kind of ecosystems that you need, that where you have people who know the challenges, you have the researchers, you have the business people, and then you also like have investments, and also those that can become clients and can test those technologies. So I think we're missing some parts of this ecosystem, but I think music is actually one that is developing pretty fast, and that it's quickly like finding a way to tackle those gaps in the ecosystem, I think.
Mhm. I would also add some educational aspects, for example, to in art institutions as well, because I am an alumni of Music Academy,
Mhm.
and I remember I I I didn't know about all of these possibilities. That I I have this knowledge now, but after many years of my own research and some like literally years of trying to find out about different roles in even in music sector, but not only, because I see a very very big potential in um, people after people who study art generally, because of this creative potential. And like for example, I didn't have any clue what to do after studies, except of becoming a teacher in music school, or instrumentalist. That these
Mhm.
were only like, or maybe I don't know, music journalist, but this is very very niche also sector, and yeah, like there is no guidance into like job market even. I don't know how it's now because I it was like some time ago when I've been studying, but this is also the thing that that is lacking
Mm,
generally,
yeah.
and that and I like I would love to see some activities, some some possibilities to connect interdisciplinary fields with art,
No,
as you said.
absolutely. I think it's
Mm.
where we talked about the role models, right? When we were studying, probably, I mean, like I was studying art history, as I mentioned, I mean, what you could do after those studies is like to basically go work in a gallery or and it was very difficult because there was a limited number of galleries or museums where you could work, so it wasn't that easy. I went to work for a culture institution, which I was doing for a couple of years. That was interesting. I'm saying always I was my well, that was very interesting job, for many reasons. And but there, like, I mean, I was always a fan of, like mixing different things. So then I went to study, the European studies. Then I went to work in a tech institution, etc. And people were just like, "Hey, why? Like, you're an art history graduate. Why? Like, what's with those European studies or like, law or like, this tech thing?" I mean, so they didn't really like they couldn't understand it and catch it. And I think this is great that this has changed in the world, right? But that those you have a lot of possibilities and that you have many more role models that now like it would be great if at the musical universities they could just also say that, hey, maybe you can be a music tech startup founder, and
Indeed. Mm.
yeah, and so you can do this and this, and here are the challenges in the music industry, which you probably know because you're just from the inside.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was on a panel discussion, and someone was saying that most innovations they come really from the outside, not from the inside, and I found it interesting. Like, why it happens? Is it that but it's just something that someone said, I probably it would need to be like searched into if that is really the thing. But I was
Mhm.
wondering, like, if people who are like inside a process, they're so used to the fact that it just
Mhm.
works like this, and have and then someone comes from outside and says like, hey, why are you doing it this way? So I think this is like that's why you should connect people, those from the inside,
Mhm.
because they really know how the process looks like, right? And those from the outside who say like, okay, why are you really doing it that way? I mean, why don't you try this? And because sometimes we're so much inside that we don't see it, right? So
Oh yeah, I think that this is how it goes because most people from that there are some experts in some field. They are just used to do some things in a way that they learned, and they even don't take under consideration that it can be a different approach to work with sound and music, and that's I find hmm, like a barrier even in trying to make something innovative because people don't they just don't want to change, they don't want to explore, they don't want to test the solutions that might be even better, that but because they used to some way of doing things, and this is they think that this is the only right way.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's true, that's true. Yeah, but it's fortunately that there are still a lot of challenges. I think also, like when we talked about funding, I think it's also, like great to find those new ways of, bringing the investors on board. I just reminded myself there is this startup, I think it's called Sound Invest, and they're creating a platform. It's a like simple idea. So they're creating a platform where um they bring on board people who want to invest in like great quality string instruments, so like because they are super expensive, so not everyone can afford it, but like they find people who, I don't know, love music and they want to invest into such instruments, and then they lease those instruments to great musicians who, on the other hand, can't afford to, like they want to play on great instruments, but they can't really afford to buy their own instruments. So this is like, and they lease it, with a regular payment, like a monthly payment or so. So this is cheaper for those musicians because they can, like have great instrument, paying not that much, and great for investors because they can also make money. So, like it's great that there are all those different mechanisms which are sometimes very easy, like around art and music investments, that you can find some ways in between, and probably it's the same like with art, that there are all the time a lot of different investments. Like there was this like people were tokenizing the artworks and selling. I mean, of course you can discuss if it's good or not, but for sure, it's a new way of investment, but also a new way for different institutions to earn their money. So of course, or I don't know, like the companies that like buy a great painting, through a community, I would say. So like, I mean, probably there are not so many people that would manage that would be able to buy a painting of $50 million. But then if you collect 100 people, or like 200, then it is possible, and that you can also own something, or like a part of it, like a share in a painting. So these are some like models that several years ago they didn't exist, and we can hate the NFTs, we can have this or that opinion about tokenization, but for sure it allowed, of course some ideas were not good, some are good, but it allowed for sure for new ways of investment. And I think this is great that we're like using different ways of trying things, and yes, innovating also around finances, etc. Because if the world is changing, the situation of people, also the financial situation is changing, we need to find like other ways of investment. So that's also important, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been also doing quite deep research into blockchain technology possibilities, especially related to the music sector, and of course, there were many scams in this sector. I mean, in NFTs, especially releasing some very, very uh, bad for the industry, I would say, actions and scams. But in the same way, as you mentioned, democratize access to the art. I think this is the way that technology is giving us possibilities to find the way to give some access to things that they were impossible until some point. Yeah, and following this thought, I also have a question, because you mentioned some startups already, but in music tech sector, is there any solution that caught your attention, especially?
Yeah, so I mentioned the Sound Invest. It's interesting for me. Recently, I was also reading about like, and also so had a meeting. It's called Piebox. It's like a tool for collaboration, because we were mentioning that the collaboration of artists, but also what I find really interesting, but I wonder if those solutions that are already on the market do it right or not, because some people say that they do it, but it's like those solutions that are like Nightshade, for example. I don't know if you know Nightshade. It's for the art. It's like that it doesn't allow you to your artwork to be like, so that the AI cannot learn, on your artwork. So it's just like it puts some kind of a, like shade
Protection.
or like, thing on your artwork so that it can't be
Used.
it can't be as reached by AI, and the AI cannot, learn on that. So I think it would be very interesting to see something like this in music. So that's we're talking a lot about such solutions, and I know, and we're like constantly looking into that space, and there are some solutions that or some startups that say that they are doing it, but there is not one solution that it would really help, because we talk a lot about opt-outs, but it's just something that might not work, and we would love to see such solutions in that. So this is something like something that I find fascinating, that in the music sector.
Like even putting some watermarks, right? But not hearable, but in this audio track somehow to I don't know, even protect
Yeah.
this track
Yeah,
being
but there
used
is
by.
not such a like, great solution that will really work. So this is like a space that, there are some solutions around it, but nothing really is the one, I think. So this is something that I find fascinating and that we are really looking into. So
Oh, so that's a challenge. Next
yeah,
year.
I think so. I think so, I think so. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I also think, that like I would like to encourage all the people who like are in the startup world, like that we're also super open, I think, as creative tech strategists or in Zyx Lab, for example, to show those challenges to people, because we of course we will be also doing it, that like probably placing on our website or publishing some challenges or some things that we are looking like the startups in those certain challenges or areas. But I think it's like my advice for people who want to create some startups, that they can like participating in those different events or calling, and having some calls with such institutions like might really help and bring them an idea on what to create in that space, so that you're not creating another app that already has 16 competitors, but that you really find out what the challenge in this ecosystem is, and try to figure out how to do it. And yeah, I think also like the researchers and different institutions, like it's also great to follow what they are doing research on, and then like try to maybe do something together with them, and because then it's it's based on something very specific.
So, from your perspective, what are the three most wanted solutions or most urgent challenges in this sector? So, one you mentioned of,
Yeah, so
right?
so 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 the other one is of course the music recognition technology, so that like so all the startups around the music recognition technology. Um yeah, and I think something with the metadata, probably, that it's easier to match all the numbers together, so that you can recognize which song it really is. So I think those three would be the biggest challenges, I think, or those that where there is still a lot of space, or I don't know, like those like that there there are a lot of mm, like a lot of those generated content tools. So yeah, so I think those three, you know, that there is still a lot of space for innovation and for finding some new tools and innovations. So yeah.
Okay, oh, good to know. I will mention them for sure in the description. Oh, okay, Agnieszka, thank you so much. So, can you tell me where can we find you in the digital space, and what are your plans for the nearest future?
Yeah. So I think LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. So if you have any questions, then feel free to ping me there. And well, what are the plans? That's a hard question. You know, I think, you know, my real aim is to grow the creative tech in Poland. You know, so that it's my absolute personal aim that we have more startups in this space, that we have a, you know, like a fund that would invest in that, or create some, you know, like acceleration program that is dedicated to creative tech only, or have the venture building. So these are, you know, like some things that in like I've been working a lot with accelerators and accelerating startups in, I don't know, health tech, food tech, etc. And, you know, like I feel like they have more dedicated programs. So that's my personal aim, that we have more things dedicated to creative tech, and that young people can see this space as something, you know, for their future, or where they can develop their startup. Or it doesn't have to be a startup necessarily, but maybe a social project, or maybe another kind of a business, but that it's, you know, grows, and we have more ventures there, and it's more knowledge based, and where we can, you know, like do some more things with the data that we have. So this is, I think this is the future.
I keep my fingers crossed for all
Thank
of
you.
these all of your activities. And knowing you, I have no doubt that this sector will grow here. So yeah, looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. Thank you and thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.